question I get asked often is, do you want to sponsor Raid Shadow Legends? The second most asked question would be, how do I start a YouTube channel? How do I go about making my first video? I mean, I've gotten this question in many forums, and people usually turn to me because they want to make content similar to my own, but maybe they just want to make content that they like, and they don't really know how to get their feet wet or how to start. Video making is kind of a tricky subject because everybody has their own idea of what they want to make, and there are a lot of hurdles in terms of what you have to learn in order to make a video. There's video editing, audio editing, effects. It's not very simple. Just setting up a camera like how I have it here, the lighting, there's all these learning curves in order how to start, and that deters people because, well, there's definitely a lot of skills you have to try and figure out all on your own. You can get help from forums, but it's you doing a lot of the work, and often that's scary because you don't know if there's going to be any sort of payoff. So how do you start? I hope to help you with that today. Number one, really know what you want to make and what your goals are. You may have thought the first step would have been, no, get a good mic, maybe get a good video editing software, but I think this is really important and maybe understated because you'll have these social media gurus online telling you how to grow your channel, the steps in order to make your channel blow up on whatever social media website you want. And not to say those are like not valid or anything, but I think a lot of the time people miss a step there because they don't really look with themselves and talk to themselves and say, what is it that I want to make? What's the form and what are my goals? I think you can only really truly be informed about what you want to make and the type of content you have without knowing what your goals from the start are. And this is going to be different for everybody. This comes with just being honest with yourself from the very beginning. What is it that you actually want to achieve? If it's fame, if it's clout, fine. But you've got to be honest with that from the start. If you want to make money, you're going to have to follow different steps than somebody who's trying to put together a series. So, to minimize your disappointment later, or when things aren't really going the way you thought they would, you need to be honest from the very start in order to build steps towards what it is you want to achieve. For me, my journey to doing this full-time is a little different. This isn't my main channel, this is just sort of my more like down-to-earth channel where I talk to you about tutorials and whatnot. But I started doing this full-time in No, that's not true. I did this in 2014 during university. It was something I did for fun because there were topics online that I wanted to talk about, and then it sort of snowballed into what I have now, but there was no real aim. And it's only recently where I'm trying to decide on my aim and build towards that, towards a goal that I have in mind. And it's fine if you just want to use YouTube as a way for you to build up skill sets. That's what I did. I found a way to talk about things I cared about, but also to be able to learn new editing skills, different skill sets. And for me, it worked out. It may not work in every case, but that's a valid goal in itself as well if you just want to learn. But realizing what it is you're doing from the very start is important, so you just minimize how disappointed you get or minimize what your expectations are. Because truthfully, YouTube is a very it's just not very fulfilling if you're going into it thinking that things are going to turn out one way, because the website constantly keeps changing, and before you even think about growing an audience and making money off of doing this, you've really got to enjoy it. That's the one thing I tell everybody who makes content. If you don't enjoy it and you're doing this for some end goal, you're not doing it because you care about each of the individual steps. At some point of the way, you're going to get angry, you're going to be frustrated, envious, and it's just not healthy. So that's why I think setting a goal first is extremely important. Point 2. This is where I would say you need to make content that fits your goal, but also you. I would say that my goal changed over time, but maybe it's more that I sort of, what is wrong with my speaking?
What's up, Doc?
I sort of boiled down what it is exactly that I wanted to do. What is the form of my content? For me, on my main channel, I do heavily edited, heavily written sorts of video essays, reviews, and that's what I think best suits my tone, my voice, and just what I'm interested in. But that's not going to be the same for everybody. It's easy to see stuff you like and want to emulate it, but realize that your skill sets may be better in another way. I could like Minecraft, for example, and I like, some of the cooler Let's Players of Minecraft, and then I want to try and do those Let's Plays, but then I realize you know, maybe I'm not the best for off-the-cuff jokes, sort of off-the-cuff commentary and playing for long periods. Maybe you're better at doing long-form analysis or statistics or stuff like that. You've got to fit what your skill set is and where you excel. And I think that's just coming with finding your voice and finding what it is you like. Each of your decisions also will come with pros and cons, depending on what you decide to do. So I think really understanding where you excel is key. And maybe that'll only come from experimentation and trying different forms of content, and that is okay. This leads to my third point. Just start and keep starting over. This is something, as well as when I say that you should be doing something you love, I often say to people who are like, oh, I want to make a new series, or I want to try doing animation. I say, just start. Because often we mystify these sorts of goals we have in our head. Like, we have an idea for what we want to make, and then we see the whole thing finished in our mind, and then that sort of makes it this fable, this sort of untouchable sort of thing that we can't ever reach. And we'll never reach it when we think of it like that. We've got to really demystify these things and take it one step at a time, just like everything else. You'll look towards creators you like and see the stuff they make and be like, I can never make that, but you don't see the journey that reached that point. So I often say that if you're scared to start, just start somewhere. You definitely will not make your best thing first, and if you think there are people out there that do that, you likely haven't seen their first thing. Something I've adopted recently is the no 0 days principle. Essentially, it kind of just boils down to what it is. You have no 0 days. Every day, with a certain skill I'm trying to learn, I have a journal to document my progress, and I try to do one thing every day. And this one thing doesn't have to be anything remarkable. It doesn't have to be a completed project. It doesn't have to be even a completed piece of art. It can be something as simple as 30 minutes of work reading up on something, or testing out a new thing, just trial and error. As long as I'm putting forward a little bit every day, then eventually I will reach a point where I'm much more skilled than I was maybe a month ago. It's a lot easier for me to say, but you'd be surprised at how easy it is to just do it when you have this mentality going. And I know there are going to be days where you just don't want to do anything, and that is totally okay. But if you can just muster up the strength to do something for 5 minutes, it'll go a long way when those 5 minutes accumulate to an hour, or when those 30 minutes accumulate to math. And there is a second part to this. It's just start and keep starting over. Many times we're really afraid to fail. We're really afraid to have someone dunk on our content, call us cringy, say that what we're making is bad. But you'll never be able to get better if you don't have any sort of idea of what you're making. You're usually the only set of eyes on the thing you're making, so sharing it and just being brave and putting it out there is actually a lot more important than how good the thing is itself. Just gonna pull the curtain back a little bit. I get often, whether it be from people who don't quite understand YouTube, I get the same sorts of conversations like, oh, you do YouTube? Whoa, you can make a living off of it? Maybe I should try that. And that's a fine thought process in a vacuum, but people don't often reconcile what it costs to do this, because I am not even, what would you even consider people who make a living off of YouTube from everybody that posts on the website? Maybe it's not everybody's initial goal, right? People just, I did it for fun and it took off. But how many people are actually doing it? That doesn't even put into consideration what I had to give up in order to decide to take this path, and the years that maybe I could have spent doing another skill, or maybe building my career in another field. So before you tackle this journey, you really have to accept within yourself if that's the goal you truly want, and if it's something you want to give up other things for. I don't really hear that talked about a lot, and that's not to deter you, it's just more to give you a sense of, okay, this is a real choice. You can't treat it like you just want to get lucky overnight. You really got to care about it. So to close off the tangent, you really got to love what you do, and you've got to be honest with yourself, because if you're just doing this for some other means to an end, along the way, you may find that it's not fulfilling, and you may just want to stop, and then you may wonder, what happened? Why don't I like this anymore? So that's pretty important. You just got to be honest with yourself. And maybe there are some YouTubers right now, smaller YouTubers, who are trying to achieve the next step, get to the next milestone, and the journey is long. It isn't something, or at least for most of us, something that happens overnight. And even the people you think it happens overnight for, there's a lot more that just isn't said about what went into it and how long it took. So never get deluded or see somebody with 1 million subscribers and believe that that just sort of happened because they're so amazing and there was no build up. It takes time, and you have to give yourself that sort of credit. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope this was of some help to you. This isn't an editing tutorial. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with this channel. I think it's more sort of this type of content where I'm just sharing what I've learned and trying to help those, because honestly, like, if I can offer anything, I think that's a good use of what platform I do have. And I care a lot about making content, and there are some things I take for granted for knowing, and I just want to send off to you all. So that's it. See you later.